He got hit with so many typicallys and uniques.
Well, that's unique. We don't really see that very much.
Yeah, typical or unique. Aiden was unique today, or there was
Right.
something typical today.
Oh, yes, that is very typical. We see it all the time.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's typical.
Oh, every child is unique, so we can't say what is typical.
You know, that's typical. See you later. You know.
We call it the typical unique conversation. Welcome back to Typically Unique. I'm Kim Aponte, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos.
Hello. And in the previous episode, we finished the bone marrow transplant, and we showed some videos of Aiden actually getting the transplant in the room right there in front of us. There was a room full of people. Yep. And so everything prior to the transplant on this round 7, we were kind of like T-minus 10 and counting till the transplant day. So it was,
countdown till.
Yeah. So transplant day minus, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So transplant day was day 0. Now we're actually transplant plus 1. Yep. So if you see T plus, it is T plus 1 the days after transplant. So you have a journal entry about T plus 1.
Yeah, how this starts turning out. And this is April 5th, 2012. Transplant plus 1 day, then tomorrow will be plus 2, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is how we will number our days for probably the next year. It is good to be on the plus side, though. Aiden has just been snoozing away. They are giving him morphine every 2 hours, so that pretty much keeps him out of it. His ribs and bones are sore right now, so that is what the morphine is for. He has only gotten sick once, about every 8 to 12 hours, so that's not too bad. And he's still taking some pills and keeping them down. He's pretty grumpy, though. I can't look at him, and God forbid, don't ask a question. On one hand, I can't stand to see him just laying there like that hour after hour. And then on the other hand, what else is he supposed to do but sleep and heal? He has been getting in the shower every night, though, and cleaning up because it is so important for his skin to stay clean. I've been coating his feet, ankles, and legs with skin cream to help in case he gets graft versus host disease on his skin. Graft versus host disease, a quick lesson. When the new cells go into Aiden's body, they look around and say, hey, this isn't our body. So they may start fighting and attacking things like his skin cells, liver cells, and stomach and intestinal tract cells. Those are the common ones. The doctors are giving him meds to prevent this from happening, though. Graft versus leukemia, a quick lesson. We do want the new cells to go into Aiden's body and look around, and if they see any cancer cells, they will say, hey, you aren't normal. I don't recognize you. And they will attack and kill the cancer cells. This is what we want, and it's part of the transplant curing Aiden. So right now, I'm just hanging out while Aiden sleeps, holding a puke bucket once in a while, and helping set up supplies for shower time. Oh, and throw in peppering the nurses with questions about meds constantly. The nurses have been awesome, though. Carlos and I were talking on the phone tonight, and he said, I don't know about you, but I feel like we were just laying down at the hospital watching The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then all of a sudden the transplant is over. I feel the exact same way. Saturday was the night we were relaxing, watching a movie together, or turned out half a movie, when the flood happened in the room above us, and we moved rooms, and things were just a whirlwind since then. I think we just caught our breath again. And for me, when my body gets stressed, I get horrible back pain and stomach pain. So let's just say I had to go to the drugstore to find some Doan's pills today. As I was typing this, the nurse came in with Aiden's nighttime meds, and he took them. And then 5 minutes later, he got sick. I think they're going to have to make everything IV tomorrow. He immediately went back to sleep. And so that was the end of that post.
Yes. So the girl with the dragon tattoo, I do remember, like, that was a big hyped movie, you know?
Yeah, and I had read all the books. So
Yeah.
I was like super pumped to watch this movie. So that just made it even worse.
And we finally had like a moment of relax. It was a couple days before Aiden was going to get the bone marrow transplant. We were just like, hey, let's play around. We'll watch this movie. Aiden was probably in the game room at the time. So, you know, we could watch that. And last thing, like the next thing I remember, we were like post-transplant a couple days. Mm-hmm. It was like, what the heck happened, you know? Because everything, us moving and, you know, everything that was happening the last couple days before transplant and the, you know, the blood coming and the cells and everything, it was just a whirlwind. And by the time we caught our breath again, it was post-transplant.
Because that was Saturday night. And we're up to like 1:30 in the morning and then meeting with everybody Sunday. And then Wednesday was transplant day. So, yeah, it's
craziness.
Crazy amount of time.
You know, and another thing too, you know, you talk about your stress and what that physically does to your body. You know, that's something that you really didn't, until it got to a really bad point, did you really kind of take care of yourself in that situation? Mm-hmm. Or did I realize that, you know, Kim may have needed some TLC in those situations? And I think it's, you know, important to say that, you know, for you to be strong for the person that you're caring for, you have to have strength. You know, and that's not mental, but that's also physical, you know. And if Kim's not at the top of her game, we could miss some things, you know. So I think take care of yourself along with taking care of the people that, you know, you're trying to help in this situation.
Yeah, we do have an example coming up later in this episode of something that I did miss and was kicking myself about that. So that kind of the light bulb went off for me right there when you mentioned that's probably why, like, yeah, it'll always come out. The stress will come out in like my shoulders and neck area. That's awful.
Yep.
And you know, we knew about the graft versus host disease, that could happen, and it was most common for it. Patients would get a rash on their skin. That's an indication of that happening, and then the intestinal tract. And they're talking like from your mouth all the way through your whole intestinal tract. But they can warn you and try to tell you about that. But we have some examples of what that was really like coming up, and it was horrendous.
Yeah, and how Aiden powered through some of that stuff. I mean, you know, I'm a big baby, and I don't think I could have done.
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, they just said, oh, mouth sores. No, it wasn't mouth sores. The whole lining inside of his mouth, and this is graphic, so warning, but pretty much just bled out. Like, it was disgusting.
Yeah, and we maybe have some pictures or videos of him doing, you know, because he couldn't swallow either because, you know, of everything that was going on. So he was just stuffing his mouth with gauze
we had to find something.
Yeah, to catch the blood, catch the saliva, you know, anything. And he just looked pretty bad. So the first video that we're going to show on this episode is about a week after transplant. And they're just trying to get Aiden to get up and walk around. His condition at this time was what?
I mean, he was just sleeping.
Sleeping, okay.
Just sleeping. Yeah, just out of it. Pretty soon after, he's going to start having the mucositis is just going to wreck his whole intestinal tract. So it affects his stomach. That's why they had to make everything IV, because he couldn't eat or take any pills anymore. So those were the big issues. His oxygen, he's going to start getting affected by that, low oxygen, and we're not sure why, but that's going to come up.
But in this video, he's actually walking. They're trying to get him up and walk. So he's sleeping most of the time, right? So now they're just trying to get him up and walking, right? They don't want him to, you know, first of all, they want to get his blood flowing a little bit. You know, he's got all this new stuff, you know, let's get it moving around. And plus, they don't want him to lay there for, 6 weeks while he's recovering, so his muscles, get atrophy or something like that.
Well, and they were really worried about his lungs.
Yes, and breathing.
Yeah, his breathing issues. So I was shocked at how quickly, 6 or so days later, they're getting him up to walk around. But, they knew to try to prevent issues that they had to do that.
So the first video is just a quick clip of Aiden post-transplant walking around.
What that looked like.
Yeah, and I'll have a few thoughts when we come back from that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, no, Linda. I'm so sorry. You could just sit. Yeah. You can get it, that'd be awesome. Oops, sorry. I wondered if that's...
Hi.
Hi, Grandpa.
You get some chocolate milk there?
Good job, Aiden.
Aiden, when it nice, slow, deep.
I think I took a few more of these, and maybe we have some of those we can show a little bit later on, but this was kind of the first one, and it gets me every time. I don't know, I don't know why. It's been a few years, but this was kind of the start of that 10,000 foot stare that Aiden had. He was just so, drugged up and, on pain medicine and just fighting through all the stuff that he had to go through. This is the best he looked during this transplant. This is the best he looked. And I remember thinking when I took this video, there's like this Bible verse I heard once, like a long time ago, when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And for some reason in that moment, I thought that is what that means. I could never imagine what that looked like in my head.
No, we saw it.
And and that was the first time that it registered in my mind. But there are subsequent days that he looked 10 times worse, if you could even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And they're literally holding him up like these two people are holding him up as he's walking around. And I remember thinking as I was taking that video, and I think I talked to Kim about it later, like, I know what walking through the valley of the shadow of death means. Mm-hmm. Because I saw it firsthand today. So that's that video. We have another one, right?
Yeah, so the next little clip that we wanted to share was showing what they did for his oxygen levels, because he started to have issues with that, and then some a little trick we had to come up with, because remember, Aiden starts having the mucositis issue, so not only can he not swallow or eat or anything like that, he couldn't talk. Mm-mm. He didn't want to. He wouldn't even move his mouth, and it was just stuffed with gauze for weeks.
Yeah.
It was like that. So watch this little clip, and then we'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay, today is day 125, day 68, T plus 11, which is 11 days since his transplant, and it's April 15th. It's Sunday, and Carly and I just came up. There's Carly. She had a fun experience with a bug in the car. So that was number one. And we're relieving Kim today. Say hi.
Hi, look horrible.
And here's Aiden today. Just resting. So he has to have the oxygen mask on, and I'll show you why, if I can. So come over here. That is his oxygen level. and it should be 99 or 100, and you can see it's pretty low. So I think if it goes below 90, it starts beeping. So that's why he has to keep the oxygen on.
Turn bell.
Oh, and here's the bell. Yeah. Ugh. I hate that sound.
So you mentioned something about Aiden, and he couldn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
So you picked up the little jingly bell, right?
I think we grabbed those from the kids' playroom.
Might
like,
have,
at
yeah.
the game room, they had like the big kids side where Aiden always was, but they had another little side
For the littler kids,
like there was
yeah.
a little toy box. I'm like, oh, they got these bells.
So we grabbed the bell, and that's how Aiden got our attention, especially when we were sleeping, because he couldn't be like, Dad, hey, I got to get up, or I have to throw up or something. He would just ring the bell, and then with his eyes and pointing, you would try to
Yep.
figure out what was going on. But that was the bell. We kept that. I think we still have that bell somewhere. I think up in our closet.
And
but
we were so annoyed by that thing. Oh my gosh.
every
Oh.
like few years later, once in a while I would find it, like picking up stuff, and I would bring it out, and we'd be like, "Oh no,
Not the
not the
bells."
bell." So I mean, but that was, I think in that video we're talking about is, he has the oxygen mask on, and he's toggling between, that he's getting pretty low in oxygen, and they're trying to make sure that he has it. That was kind of a struggle with him because he ended up putting gauze in, so he didn't have a good seal on the oxygen mask. And
Right.
we're always concerned about that. And, he didn't like the nose thing. And then plus his nose was kind of bothered. So there was, even some of the little things that we were just trying to make sure that he was okay with. We had to, put in the gauze so it fit in there, and we still had a seal so he can get enough oxygen.
And change it a lot
Change
because
it,
it would
oh,
just,
yeah.
I know it's gross, but at this point we're just keeping him as comfortable as possible, that we can't control any of these side effects that are happening to him. So it's just manage what we can the best way that we could for him.
And all this stuff is happening 24 hours a day, right? I mean, when he's sleeping, yeah, we have a little bit of rest, but he could wake up at any moment. You don't know when he's
And
going to
ring
wake
the
up
bells.
and ring the bell. So we were staying at Ronald McDonald House every once in a while. During this time, I don't even think we made it over there. Not even to, get some food or anything. We always needed to be there because you never knew what was going on with him. So kind of lighthearted, kind of serious, but I mentioned that Carly had an issue with a bug.
Yeah, Carly was in that video.
Yeah, so I'll tell this story real quick. So when we were at home getting ready to come up to the hospital, we had a stink bug in our house one day, like a month or so before. And Carly was like, that is the ugliest looking bug. And they don't move that well. I mean, you could literally catch them, and
Yeah, just creepy.
but it's just, it looks bad, and she's like, that's the scariest bug. I'm like, Carly, this bug does nothing, don't be afraid of it, So we get in the truck to come up, we had a big Chevy Avalanche or something at the time. So we got in the truck, and Carly sits down, and she looked on her lap, and there was a stink bug
Oh, no.
on her leg, looking right at her. She jumped out of the truck and was like, I can't get in that truck ever. Like, she did not want to come with me to Cleveland because there was
a bug in
there was
there.
a stink bug in the truck. But I finally convinced her that stink bug is gone. We got rid of it. She got in the truck. We ended up coming up to Cleveland, but
That's
I kept
funny.
teasing her about the bug all the way up there, so she was a little traumatized by that.
We have
But,
to laugh when we can.
We laugh when we can.
With these
you know.
stories. And plus, keeping this journal, and we would have never remembered that bug story. But having this journal and all the little things that I captured in it, is just so precious to have.
Yeah.
So I'm
So-
glad that we have those.
Yeah, and that was a fun thing, but during this, now remember, I can't say it enough. Aiden's immune system is completely wiped out. Not
Yep.
a little bit wiped out. It is completely wiped out. And anything that's happening to him, we're on everybody like a hawk, right? So Kim is the master at being, making sure everything's going the right way. And I try to, use some of her techniques, in the best way that I can. But, I'm trying to, again, advocate for Aiden and making sure things are going right. And there was a situation that just wasn't feeling good, and you have a journal entry about that. So
yeah, I remember this event, but I was surprised that it happened so soon after transplant. And in our previous video, one of them, I had mentioned how he had that Metaport, and there was an issue with it. So
yeah, because he had a big
goes
bump
with that. Yeah. So I said, at 11 o'clock, I switched with Carlos. Great day to be going home, not. Although I just simply have to go home for a breather once in a while. When Carlos took over, they came to x-ray Aiden to see if there was fluid in his lungs, but the x-ray was okay. They still think he has fluid because of what they hear. They will manage this with Lasix and making him pee. Sometime in the afternoon, the echocardio lady came to do an echo of his heart. And when she entered the room, she was, as we would say in the Hispanic lingo, bruta. Being very rough with moving Aiden's things around. Carlos sent me a text saying, "You would kill this lady." So I said, "Do it for me." And then I put figuratively, of course. So Carlos, being Carlos, says, as only he could, "Are you in a bad mood?" And he said this to the lady. He said that to the echo lady. "Are you in a bad mood?" And our nurse was in the room, and she busted up laughing. Yeah, Carlos knows how to put people in their place without getting angry. I know. I need to take lessons. The echo came back fine, and Aiden started peeing. Hooray. We were cheering at my parents' house for the pee because he had an issue, and he had to get a temporary catheter. So that was one of the issues that we had been dealing with. But that didn't last long, because 30 minutes later, I got a message saying, "We have an issue, call me." And you could imagine, when I get a text like that, I go from 0 to 100, like blood pressure shooting through the roof, especially because I'm not there and I'm at home. The nurse came in to draw blood for labs, and instead of getting blood from Aiden's Metaport, she got 2 huge syringes full of clear fluid. Yikes. Aiden's right side of his chest was huge because the Metaport needle had slipped out. Yeah, right. I think the Bruta Echo lady did it. And all the antibiotic went into his skin, under his skin, instead of into the Metaport vein. That poor honey had to have the needle taken out, and then he got 5 shots into the skin around the Metaport to help the skin not get inflamed. He just has to wait for his body to absorb the medicine, or the antibiotic. So then Carlos had FaceTimed me and everything, and he showed me what that looked like. Now, here's the issue, okay? And when you had been talking earlier about me getting run down and just, being on high alert, and how that takes a toll on you, and possibly missing some things. Okay, so this is one thing that I feel I missed, because I didn't really want him to get this Metaport in the first place, but they convinced me to let him do it, so I did. I trusted them and said, okay. So whenever they're going to use it, they had 2 different kinds of needles that were available around the floor to use. And apparently the most popular one that is readily on hand and everybody uses all the time didn't go with his Metaport. So the other one that he needed to be like stable and get the medicine in there, no issues, was like they had to go find it special, so they didn't use that one. And so that's what the issue was, and they missed the insert hole, and that's why the medicine didn't go in the right way. And I knew all that, and normally I would have been all over it, and especially if I was there and knew this was going to happen. But I don't think either one of those, I don't think we knew that this was going to happen, so or that they were going to be using the Metaport.
And I didn't know what to look for.
No, I would have to communicate that stuff, and So, yeah, I just felt bad about that because then he had to get like all those extra shots. And that's why I would just get so mad about that. Just unnecessary pain and issues.
And then
we don't need.
And the thing that I think frustrated me about that whole thing, and we don't know this for a fact, but I think we both agree that, when Aiden had a plan, he had a book and it said, how you deal with Aiden when you come in, and things like that. And he's very sensitive, with these, things inside of him, that people are accessing. And this lady came in like she was pissed off, at the world or something. I don't know what was going on.
She's lucky I wasn't
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to say something, and it just she wasn't like kind of backing down. And Aiden didn't speak, even when he could talk, he didn't. But he spoke with his eyes, like, get this person out of here. I'm getting pissed or something. He would speak with his eyes, and I saw that he was getting a little tensed up. This lady was being way too rough and just moving stuff. And let me pull your shirt aside. It's just
so because an echocardiogram is where they either had to hook things up to him or maybe roll something around his chest. And remember, Aiden, that's one of the tests he refused to go to earlier on when he did have energy and he was talking and communicating just during his normal chemo rounds. So now he has no energy. He's laying in that bed. He can't talk. He's helpless and counting on us to help him. And that was just awful.
Yeah, I hated that for him. I also know that, past that incident, which was traumatic for all three of us, right? All three of us were like, oh my gosh. But other things are starting to kick in. We're, a week past transplant and all that stuff's starting to kick in. His body's rejecting some things and accepting some things. He's getting side effects. He's we have to monitor things that we didn't really have to monitor before, so there's just a lot going on during this time.
Yeah,
right?
the battle is happening right now inside his body.
Good way to say it. Yep.
With his body and these new cells going in. They
Right.
have to learn. I think the nurse even explained it like this to me, that they have to learn to coexist peacefully together. So until they do, he's just going to get all these medical issues and sicknesses and illness, whatever is coming up, and it's not fun. And it is like looking at death and being born again once you come out the other side. Yeah. It's that bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's incredible. So at this point, we're waiting for his counts to come up. These battles are going to be happening for a while.
Yeah, weeks.
And we just are looking for any sign of engraftment, any sign of his body making some antibodies and cells and just anything for us to show something. So,
and they told us 14 to 20 days. So you wait to get to day 14, right?
And then nothing.
And then once day 14 comes, then you're like, oh no, I hope it's tomorrow. And then you don't want to go past 20 days, right? Because then I'm really going to start freaking out. So that's kind of where we're at in the journey.
So in the next episode, we'll probably pick up with, it may not be day by day, but, everything that's kind of happening during this time and see if we can't get to the engraftment. How is he handling these side effects? Maybe we have a few more videos that show.
Yep. Hopefully no more flooding stories.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully.
But you never know.
Hopefully some milestones, and some concerning things. But, we did a pretty good job of kind of monitoring that. So we'll pick some of that up in the next episode.
Yep. Join us back for that, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.